Attached, the new science of human attachment and how it can help you find and keep love by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. But I don't want to do it alone. If you want to make self-growth normal, make sure to smash that like button. Now, speaking of self-growth, I want to briefly express the importance of doing what you say you will do. I know there's a giant band-aid on my cheek right now. That is because I went to the mall the other day and someone threw a stiletto at my face, and that pointy part at the bottom popped me in the cheek, and that's definitely not actually what happened. I had a cyst on my cheek and the doctor removed it yesterday. This is the second one in 4 months, so I'm going to an otolaryngologist. I think that's what it's called. Ear, nose, throat doctor. I'm not just saying this because that way no one's like, what happened to this guy's face? Why is he neglecting his health? But more importantly, because I said I was going to do something about it in my last video 2 days ago, and I followed through with that because of that social pressure I put on myself. If you need to be doing something, if there's something you need to be doing right now, I want you to pause this video and do it right now. Don't wait. Every second counts. I know some of you out there are probably procrastinating right now. I really hope the type of people who watch my videos are not procrastinators. They're crazy, insane action takers who like to thoroughly think a lot about what they're doing as well. If that describes you and you are curious about the science of human attachment, keep watching. Let's talk about this book. And there's going to be a huge kind of like warning about if you get this book, what to pay attention to in the end. I think that alone can save so much stress for people who are getting this book. Now, 20 years of research went into this book. When you buy books, you are compressing decades into days. Really consider that. These people have been best friends since, I think, 7th grade. It said on Amir's Facebook profile. They're in the same field, even now. And they finally wrote a book together. Isn't that exciting? When I got this book, I figured it has to be good. Please know, by the way, that relationship science is not an old thing. I don't know how or why, but it's just not. And there are 3 attachment styles is what it's called when it comes to attachment. The entire book almost like fully centers around these attachment styles. And what is an attachment style? Well, an attachment style is like a category. Everybody can fall into one of these 3 categories. The categories differ in their view of intimacy and togetherness, the views of conflict, their attitudes towards sex, their ability to communicate their wishes and needs, and their expectations of the partner and the relationship. 50% of the total population is secure. 20% are anxious. 25% are avoidant. And a rare 5% fall into a disorganized category, whatever that means. I don't even think they talk about that at all in the rest of the book. 1 in 4 people do change their attachment style within a period of 4 years or so. Henry Ford has said that skepticism is the balance beam of civilization, and I know some of you guys are probably thinking, what a crock of shit. You can't just label someone under one of 3 things and say,
oh, well, that's all we don't know about relationships.
It doesn't seem like it makes much concrete sense, but the author talks about the loopholes of the theory throughout the book. The thing is, you just can't write a book like this and not thoroughly address that. After this, they explain that dependency is not really a bad thing. Any objections people might have to that, I will talk about later in the review for sure. They also have a quiz, like a very thorough quiz. One with a scoring key to help find which attachment style represents you. In short, the anxious style loves to be close to their romantic partners and has the capacity for great intimacy. But they do fear often that their partner is not as close as they want. The secure style finds being warm and compassionate in a relationship to be natural for them. They effectively communicate with their partner, and basically, if you're secure, I don't know, that sounds like the ideal type to be. The avoidance style values their sense of personal freedom over the closeness of the relationship. And this is like, for anyone curious, it's basically me. I took the quiz and I want to be secure. Believe me, I am working on it. Hopefully the therapist I'm linking up with will have a cancellation before our first appointment date, because that date is just not soon. Until and beyond then, that's what I'm betting on, and I'll be listening to these books anyway. It's almost obvious how passionate the authors are about the idea of educating us on the ins and outs of neediness, the different ways it can present itself, where it seems abundant or scarce, or like a fusion of the two, or it doesn't really seem to be any sort of a threat to the relationship.
If gone unaddressed, of course.
And the stories they present will give you more of a vivid, like visual sort of idea of what each attachment style looks like in action, which I think can be really useful, and I'll talk about why later in the review. Now, it also gives you an idea of why these people do what they do and why they don't do what they don't do. I think one of the most incredible things about human beings is our ability, collectively and individually, to identify and just recognize patterns. Something on top of that is that it does occur to us, not all of us all the time, but it does occur to us how important it is to do that. In finance and health and spirituality and what have you, but definitely in relationships. If I'm not seeing those patterns, it's gonna fuck me up. And I'm gonna spend my whole life romantically unsatisfied. You know how many people do that? Isn't that scary to think about? That really scares me. If you know the sex transmutation chapter of my favorite book of all time, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, you know how important it is to have a healthy relationship with not just yourself, but also someone else on your way to success. This book is basically like, here are the patterns. Laid out as simply as possible. If you read this book, all the things that went wrong you don't see will yell at you, and they'll be like,
Johnny, you never answered her texts about picking up Sarah from daycare, and now I'm coming back to haunt you. Susan, you always yelled at Robert for telling you that he's too busy to spend more time with you, and now you're gonna pay the price.
Adam, you bit into the apple way too early, and now Eva's gonna snitch on you.
Because you don't value her opinion enough.
and, well, you get the point. I like to look at negative reviews on Audible. This negative review is actually like very thorough and like worth paying attention to. And I want to say where I kind of disagree, and I want to draw the line, because you guys know how I am and how I think you should be ideally about squeezing the value, like every single drop of juice that you could possibly get out of books. You spend your hard-earned money on these books. You deserve to get every single bit of use out of your time that you spend digesting them and applying them. And I can say from my own experience that this is a real thing. It's very bad. And if you fail to notice it and let the contents of this book be like, just the foundation of how you view relationships, I personally have found that there is a lot more to relationships and understanding them than the stuff that's in this book. Like a lot. This person who wrote the review is a therapist, and she said that saying it's okay to have needs in a relationship may give someone the reinforcement of a lack of taking ownership. Whatever she doesn't mention is that it's important that these needs are met, which is mentioned in the book. She also says that the book puts categories of, patterns between people as opposed to dimension and identity. And that it suggests that the problem itself lives in the partner. And the sexy idea they're selling that, if the anxious partner finds a secure partner, then all their problems will be solved. However, there is more to meeting your needs in a relationship than relying solely on the other person's attachment style and how it can benefit you. And that is talked about in the book. I'll explain why I think she seems to have sort of dismissed it and the other thing in just a second. And she says it basically puts us in like this fixed mindset that kind of only makes it worse. An avoidant anxious couple can fix the patterns that happen between them, but she says the book seems to suggest that these roles are traits rather than strategies that can be modified, and that this discourages a focus on actually fixing the problem itself. I agree with all of this, but I also disagree with all of it. To say that these things are a simplified, surface level version of underlying dynamics that need to be worked on to be resolved, there's something about that. This book is not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of simply
beating around the bush, if you will.
There are so many tips and strategies on how to treat these problems. However, if you think this book is going to help you solve all the problems in the relationships you're in forever, from my own experience in more than just relationships, I wouldn't rely on one book alone. That's another reason I listen to so many different ones. The best thing I think anyone could possibly get out of this book is a sharpened ability to recognize healthy and unhealthy patterns of human behavior in relationships. Because if you don't recognize the patterns of what you or those close to you are doing to those people and those close to them, there are just a lot of solvable problems that we are leaving on the table unfixed, and we're like,
I don't know, maybe it'll just fix itself.
it's for the sake of awareness. And my biggest problem with this book overall, one, I don't really honestly expect the authors to tackle, this is their first book that they wrote, is the fact that they use the words anxious and avoidant so many times throughout the entire book that they almost inevitably shoot us under the impression that we just unavoidably fit under one of these categories. And we identify. There's something really scary about that word identify when it comes to identifying as these things. Because there is just far more bad than good in simply calling yourself words like avoidant and anxious. And I know someone could be like,
Oh yeah, Sam? What else would you call them? Since you're the fucking expert and
honestly, I don't know. But the focus that the authors put on categorization really makes a lot of people who could read this book feel, I swear, like there is just, it's very black and white. And I guess gray if you count the third, a third attachment style. I blame that more than anything from this book. That is why people think this book doesn't present anything other than the problem or externalized solutions to it. And that is a very, very major problem in any book's self-presentation. I think it's a source of so many negative reviews for so many books in nonfiction. And I truly encourage anybody who's getting this book in general, trying to do it to increase awareness of healthy and unhealthy patterns of behavior in human relationships. I do encourage them to be just as aware on,
this is like a caution sign I'm giving you guys.
I do think the book is worth it, but if you let the whole labeling, categorizing thing get in the way of the sharpening, as we said, of your ability to recognize patterns like that, it took me personal experience and the several thorough readings of negative reviews to notice that. And I just want to save you guys a lot of time and stress and energy and so much shit. And even the book will mention that there's a whole chapter, or two actually, about avoiding the trap of looking at it like this or that. Like so many of these things are talked about, but even if they are stressed to the point of like death, you cannot stress them when you are using the words anxious and avoidant like hundreds of times throughout your book. It's a really, really, really big thing to look at potential loopholes like this. One, when you put books like this one together. And also keep in mind that it is called attachment theory. Quotes, most people are only as needy as their unmet needs. Just because you get along with anyone does not mean that you have to. Direction 1. I recommend this book if you constantly have problems with relationships and you don't know why they happen or what they are. I mean, think about it. If your relationships with people end constantly around the same premises, I know it can be very difficult, in my experience, at least, to admit like the problem is not coming from the other person. I think it might be coming from myself. That is a really scary thing to admit to yourself, but believe me when I say that the payoff of taking that ownership and committing to making your way through to the other side of it will blow your mind. Direction 2. If you like this book, I've said in some other review that relationship books are really not like everything I know, close to as much as business and the technology and the sales and stuff like that. The most popular relationship book I think I've heard of is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know why people watch this far into my videos and they won't subscribe, but it is what it is. If you did subscribe but you want to turn it up a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.